Hi viewers, a warm welcome to all of you. Welcome to Nandan's IAS. Today I am going to start Indian Economy by Raman Singh and Shankar Ganeshan. After listening our lecture, go through Ramesh Singh and Shankar Ganeshan chapter 1. We have covered almost each and every topic and each and every important point of Ramesh Singh and Shankar Ganeshan. It will be very easy for you after listening our lecture, okay? So in this lesson, first we are going to learn about what is economics, what are the sectors of economics, what are the different distributed systems, and what are various reforms that were done in order to improve the economy of any country. Okay, so first introduction, let's see first one, what is economics. Here economics is a study of how goods and services are produced, distributed and consumed. When I am talking about here economics, study of goods and services. When I'm talking about goods, it may be the materials things, and services like health, education, telecommunication and so on. So how these material things and how these services are produced, how they are distributed and how they are consumed, all these is the study of economics. Okay, so economics is a study of how goods and services are produced, distributed and consumed. Okay, see, in order to get these goods and services, first you want resources. Without the resources, no goods and services can be produced. As this world is so large, and there are millions of population in this world, so because of this we have limited resources. So that's the reason the famous economist, the British economist Lionel Robbins said that it is the science of scarcity. Why? Because we are having only limited resources. Everybody have got this point, I think so. I am saying it again, it is a study of how goods and services produced, distributed and consumed, and whatever the goods and services we need, we want resources. As there are limited resources in this world, so that is the reason economics called the economics as the science of scarcity. Okay, see, in order to know in depth of economics, there are three types of economics, that is micro, macro and econometrics. Before knowing about these, let me explain you something. Here when I am talking about micro, the literal meaning of micro is small, right? And macro is big. What is the meaning, I am asking? Okay, it is small and the macro is big. Econometrics, when I am talking about metrics, it tells about calculations. Simple. You have got the point now. See, when I am talking about micro, it is small. That means I am talking about only small group or a single individual. When I am talking about macro, it is big, that is large, so that I am talking about the whole nation. When I am talking about econometrics, I am talking about the calculations in the economics. Okay, see, Great Depression in 1930. After the World War I, the world has faced the Great Depression. Why? Because most of the countries invested their money in arms, in military, rather than using it in the welfare of the people. So because of these, there is huge recession followed by depression, and many people has lost their job, and there is extreme poverty across the world. So when there is a Great Depression in 1930, one of the economists named John Maynard Keynes, so he has written a paper called The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936. So depending upon this paper, the new economics has merged, called as macroeconomics. Okay, after the Great Depression in 1929 and 1930, one of the economics named John Maynard Keynes, he is said to be the father of macroeconomics because he has written a paper named The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936. So depending on his paper, the new economics has emerged, it is macroeconomics. Now let's see what is the difference between macro and econometrics. Okay, see, the streams of economy, the first one is micro. Micro is nothing but it is bottom to top approach, like trees in the forest. For example, if you take the whole forest, I am talking about individual tree. Okay, this tree is an orange tree, this is apple tree, and this orange tree use it to have 10 oranges, apple tree is used to produce 20 oranges. So I am talking about the individual trees here. When I am talking about individual trees, it is said to be microeconomics. Okay, here I have already written individual and smaller groups. And next one, macro. When I am talking about macro, it is top to bottom approach. That means I am talking about the whole forest. So the total production of all the trees in the forest I am talking now. So all the fruits that are produced in the forest, when I am talking about like this, it is said to be macro. So relate these trees with the individuals in the country and forest as a country. Okay, so example, studies about the whole forest, studies about the whole nation. So in order to know in depth, let's look at this table here. See, quantity of orange demanded by Asta Mathur. See, here there are two things you have to notice. The first one is orange and the second one is Asta Mathur. Orange is only the individual or a single fruit I am talking about, and Asta Mathur is a single person. So here I am talking about individual, so that's why it is called as microeconomics. Quantity of orange, again I am talking about orange, demanded by northeastern India. Here the northeastern India, I am talking about only part of India, but not I am talking about the whole India. So it is said to be micro. And quantity of orange demanded in India, here again here I am talking about whole India, but I am talking only about a single fruit. That is again here you have an individual, so it is said to be micro. And quantity of all products demanded by India, here I am talking about the all products in India. When I am talking about the whole, it is said to be macro. Okay, and next one, price of orange in Nagpur. Here I am talking about the price. Which price I am talking about? The price of orange. Where I am talking about in Nagpur. Individual, fruit, single city, so it is said to be micro. Price of all products in India. When talking about price of all products in India, I am talking about macro. Level of employment in iron and steel industry, I am talking about only particular industry, that is iron and steel industry. I am not talking about the whole industrial sector here. So it is also comes under micro. Why? Because it is a individual or a small group. And level of employment in the whole India, it is said to be macro. I think now you are aware of what is difference between micro and macro. Okay, and see the next one, econometrics. I have already told you metrics means calculations. So here it is study of economics in the form of graphs and mathematical calculations. For example, you have written graph represents the wages of employees from the past 10 years. So while I am representing about the graph and doing the calculations like calculating national income, GDP, GNP, all this comes under econometrics. Okay, and see the next one, sectors of economy. In the first slide itself, I have told you economics is the study of goods and service produced, distributed and consumed. So these sectors depending upon these three factors, that is production, distribution and consumption. Okay, so depending upon the production, this economy is divided into three main sectors. What are that? Primary, secondary and tertiary. Okay, the primary sector, which is the first sector where depending on the exploitation of natural resources, we are going to produce the goods or services here. For example, agriculture, mining, fishing, all these comes under primary sector. And second one, secondary sector, the raw materials that are extracted out of primary sector are processed, it is said to be secondary sector. For example, if you take silk or cotton, you are extracting it from the agriculture land and you are sending it to the industries and you are producing one cloth, one beautiful dress, a beautiful shirt. Okay, so this comes under the secondary sector, that is industrial sector. And also next one, tertiary sector, when the services are produced, comes under tertiary sector. So it is also called as service sector, and the services depends on education, healthcare, banking, communication, etc. See here, when the sector contributes minimum half of the national income and livelihood in a country, it is called as service economy. So when you calculate the national income and most of the contribution is from service sector, then it is said to be service economy. In the same way, if the most of the contribution in the national income is from the primary sector, it is called as primary economy or agrarian economy. If it is comes most of the income is from the secondary sector, it is called as industrial economy. Okay, and in this service sector is again divided into two parts, that is quaternary and quinary. See, quaternary sector is also known as knowledge sector. Why? Because it is called as knowledge sector means all the human resources, that means whoever we are recruiting, all these comes under human resources, right? The resources may be man-made resources, who is having the knowledge. So depending upon this knowledge, we are recruiting all the persons to develop our nation, right? That's why it is called as knowledge sector. So all the human resources comes under this quaternary sector. And quinary sector is the brain behind the socio-economic performance of an economy. Why? Because all the top bureaucrats in the economy comes under the quinary sector. Depending upon their thoughts, we are going to implement reforms in the economy. That's why it is said to be quinary sector. All the top bureaucrats comes under this quinary sector. And next important term, stages of growth. Any country has to grow every year, right? So depending upon these three sectors, the countries will grow. I have already told you, depending upon the national income calculations, the country may be agrarian economy, industrial economy, or service economy. In order to move from agrarian economy to service economy, there are 5 linear stages. Okay, these 5 linear stages was proposed by W. Rostow. Okay, he proposed 5 linear stages to grow any country. So what he has said is that any country must pass through or must have to grow from agriculture to industry and industry to services. But there are some exceptions here. What are the exceptions? That means many of the countries like India, Philippines, Thailand, all these countries or southeastern countries, what they have seen is that all the countries have changed from agriculture economy to service economy without expansion of industrial economy. Okay, that was happened. So see, moved from the stage of agrarian to service economy without much healthier expansion of industrial sector. Example is India. India saw transition from dominance of agriculture to service sector by late 1990s, when the contribution of services in her national income crossed 50% mark. So without expansion of industrial sector, India has transformed from agriculture to services. First here you have to remember the stages of growth was proposed by W. Rostow. He said 5 linear stages of growth. Okay, and the next important is economic systems. See, again I am saying study of economics is the study of goods and services produced, distributed and consumed, how they are doing. Okay, so here depending upon the production, distribution and consumption, depending upon the production there are 3 sectors. Now depending upon the distribution, there are 3 economies in the world. The first one is market economy. When I am talking about market economy, it is also called as capitalistic economy. These market economies you can mainly seen in USA, Canada and most of the developed countries and European countries. Why? Because the major aim of these market economies are to produce wealth to the nation. Rather than welfare of the individual, it will look towards the wealth of the nation. The market economy is proposed by Adam Smith. Adam Smith is also called as father of economics. Okay, he is called as father of economics. He has written a paper called An Inquiry into the Nature, the Causes of Wealth of Nations. So what are the causes, how the nations become so wealthy? So on those concepts, so he has written a paper. So what is the name of the paper? An Inquiry into the Nature, the Causes of Wealth of Nations. The paper was published in 1776. So according to him, there is an invisible hand called and animal spirit in every individual. What is animal spirit? First of all, you see, without the animal spirit you can't crack UPSC civils. That means whatever obstacles you got, you have some motivation back, so you are going to crack the UPSC. That is animal spirit. If you have animal spirit, you are going to crack UPSC civils. Okay, so every person has some animal spirit which motivate himself or herself to do the job. So because of this, the wealth of the nation increases. Okay, and second one, division of labor. Here when I am talking about the division of labor, when the country uses to recruit the laborers in a specialized manner and give them the money depending upon their specialization, then the country will become wealthy. Okay, and property rights, when you are having, when the country gives the freedom or to have their property rights to individual, then automatically the wealth of the nation will increase. Okay, before going through all these things, what the country has to do, what the state or country here means nothing but state in economics. So here there is a concept called laissez-faire model. What is laissez-faire model? It is a French word which means leave it alone, which is generally translated by non-interference. Non-interference of state. See, in a market, okay, the state is not interfering anything. Everything is given to private forces and the price was also fixed by private forces. Then the wealth of the nation increases. That is the concept of Adam Smith. But do you think is it possible in India? Do you think if the prices is going to be fixed by the private forces rather than that of the government, then what will happen in India? See, as India is having the second most populous country in the world and we are also having many poor in the world. So what will happen? The poor will become poor and rich will become rich. So this type of system, market economy system, cannot be, is not possible in a countries like India. Okay, it can be only possible where is having less population and where they use it to have development or wealth is a only aim for them. Okay, so the example is America. But after the depression of 1930, I have already told you before macroeconomics concept that there is a great depression after World War I. So after the depression of 1929 and 1930, most of the countries including USA has changed their streams from market economy to mixed economy, and I will explain you about mixed economy in further slides. Okay, but remember, this market economy is not possible in a countries like India. Why? Because of this market economy there will be inequality. The poor there will be a gap, economic gap. The poor will become poorer and rich will become richer. At least the essential goods or the public goods must be given by states by subsidies. For example, PDS system in India. If there is no PDS system in India, lack of people are going to die because of hunger, right? So those type of things should be, the state interference should be there. Okay, for those type of things. Okay, so this type of system cannot be implemented in a countries like India. And see the next one, non-market economy. When I am talking about non-market economy, it is purely state economy, command economy or centrally planned economy. State economy means the complete interference of state. That means there is no private people here. Is it good? No. Why? Because if the state is going to handle the complete economy by itself, there may be no improvement or development growth in the state. For example, before 1991, India is said to be have most of the companies is used to be run by India. That means most of the companies are a public sector companies before 1991. So after 1991 we started to privatize most of the companies. So the growth has increased and the development has increased in India. Okay. In the same way, this type of non-market economy cannot be, or it is impossible to implement in India also. But here you have to see two things. This non-market economy has two variants, that is socialistic and communist variant. The socialistic, what is the meaning of socialistic? That means equality, right? That is equal distribution to all. The socialistic economy can be seen in USSR, whereas the communist system can be seen in China. Both these has implemented non-market economy up to 1980s. USSR has implemented up to 1989, whereas China has implemented up to 1985. Okay, they have implemented non-market economy, that is complete interference of state only, no interference of private members. It only look after the welfare of the people rather than development. But here there are cons also, as every coin has two sides. This state interference is also having cons. The cons are the people are not at all motivated to develop themselves, because complete authority is in the state is giving money to the people, they have no aim, so they used to sit there, and the resources can be utilized depending upon the priority, so most of the resources are wasted. Okay, so these are one of the cons, and it is also said to be state capitalism. Why? Because here the state is taking complete interference, so it may loot all the natural resources. So that's why most of the economists call this type of economic system as state capitalism. Nowadays this non-market economy is also changing into mixed economy. I have already told you in 1985 China has slowly transforming it into mixed economy, and USSR in 1989 it also started to have reforms in its economic system and has started to transform into mixed economy. Okay, and the third type of economy, and very important economy, mixed economy. This mixed economy can be seen in most part of the countries in the world, but first it was started in France in 1945 after the Second World War. Sorry, here I have given you extra, this is the wrong one. Okay, and here both the state and private sectors plays a significant role, whenever the state interference is required, the state is going to interference. According to World Bank, mixed economy is said to be one of the effective economic system. Okay, and okay, see, the next part is Washington Consensus. When I'm talking about consensus, that means reforms. See, there are different types of economics going on, market, non-market and mixed across the world. But what happens, the Great Depression has occurred and recessions are going to take place every time. So because of this, the institution in Washington, that is World Bank plus IMF, International Monetary Fund plus US Treasury, these three institutions together formed a paper or a theory called Washington Consensus. So it was prepared by John Williamson. Okay, according to him, there are 10-point reform policy throughout the world, so to the countries, so that there will be proper development in any country. So you can see here 10-point reform policy. I am saying again, just watch it. Washington, a place where these three institutions are there, World Bank, IMF and US Treasury. These three together formed a consensus named as Washington Consensus. It was first given its name by John Williamson. He has given 10-point reform policy to all the countries to develop its nations. First one is physical discipline. Here physical is nothing but financial. Every country should have its financial discipline. That means they must know how much to invest, or how much to invest, how much to expenditure, how much to spend and all, sorry, how much to spend and all. So every country must know that. And the next one, the redirection of, I have already told you how much they have to spend. Okay, the redirection of public expenditure priorities towards field. So on which field they have to invest more, they have to know that. Okay, on which field they have to spend more, they have to know that. And next one, mostly priorities to primary health care and education and infrastructure. And next one, tax reforms, reducing the taxes whenever required, and improving the taxes, or changing in the tax system whenever required. And next one, interest rate liberalization, that means changing of interest rate or reducing the interest rate, so that people used to get more money in hand, and they used to invest in some company, and automatically the economy will grow up. Okay, and competitive exchange rate, and competition between the two or more companies, the exchange rate has to be liberalized. Trade liberalization between the two countries. For example, if India has to export something to the other country, or import something from the other countries, so if there is a liberalization, the cost of trade is liberalized, automatically the countries imports and exports will increase, and the country is to develop. Okay, and liberalization FDI inflows, free flow of FDI inflows. You see, recently foreign direct investment has increased in India. That means we have liberalized this policy. And privatization of all the public sector institutions, and deregulations, and secure property rights. These are the 10 reforms was given by John Williamson. And the next important one is Beijing Consensus. It was given by Joshua Cooper Remo in 2004. See, as China was slowly changing it in mixed economy, it has started to have three main pillars from then, that is constant experimentation and innovation in the case of science and technology, that is improvement in science and technology, peaceful distribution of growth and gradual reforms, and self-determination and inclusion of selective foreign ideas. So these are the three main pillars of Beijing Consensus. So because of this Beijing Consensus, the China has developed more and more. Okay, and the last one, Santiago Consensus. It was coined in Santiago by James Wolfenson. The core idea of this model is inclusion. Okay, I think you are going to listen about the concept of inclusion in the second chapter, growth, happiness and development. In this chapter you are going to learn about what is inclusion and sustainable development goals and all. So in that I am going to explain you about the inclusion. So remember these three consensus, and also economic systems, types of economics and all. I think you all enjoyed this lesson. And the part 2 of the introduction, that is national income, GDP, GNP, this part I am going to give you in the another video. If you like our channel, please like and subscribe. And we are going to, as this is the first day, we are unable to provide you as per the timetable, but from tomorrow we are also going to provide you the history too. History, economics and geography, we are going to cover it. And this economics part, the Indian economy by Ramesh Singh, we are planning to complete it before May 15th. Okay, so May 15th is our target to complete Ramesh Singh and Shankar Ganeshan. Okay guys, bye bye, take care.